So by way of introduction to the chapter on function M files, I wanted to show you a piece of code that was turned into me in a previous class. I have sanitized it in order to not embarrass anybody, but I did want to use it in order to illustrate some points here. So let's just take a glance. This is the driver program, and there actually was some header information that I've again removed in order to not reveal identities. But let's just take a quick glance over this. And so we look through it. We got lots of functions or setting constants, and there's a counter. We see a for loop here. We see another for loop. There's some comments in there. That's not too bad. Then we see a while loop and a for loop. Then we have an if loop. Then we have some more for loops, more if loops, nested. Down here, another for loop. Again, another for loop. Then finally we have some output plotting and whatnot. Okay, well, let's think about this. So, what do we have here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 3.5. 3.5 pages. This is within a Word document, but we've got 3.5 pages of MATLAB code. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of what this code is doing, because obviously it's outside of the scope of this particular course, but I can assure you that there are numerous different functions going on within this main routine. And the point is that we don't have the major functions denoted. Here's a for loop, and we're not, it says time. Well, okay, could it possibly be described a little bit more than that? Refining the value, what value, and then go on and satellite loop. Well, it's better than nothing, certainly, but clearly the comments could have been a little bit more descriptive. But even more important than that is the fact that we've got too much code within the main routine. The driver routine is too long. When you have long pieces of code, they are difficult to read, they are difficult to debug. And you hopefully heard in a previous programming class, and having programmed myself for something on the order of 30 years now, I can assure you that the rule of thumb that a given module in a piece of code really ought not be longer than about 1 page is absolutely true. I have seen numerous students turn in pages of code, or more likely, they develop pages of code and then they're having a very difficult time debugging it. They can't figure out what's going wrong. And so, of course, the rule of thumb is to have very small, testable modules. If the code is longer than a page, you really ought to start thinking about breaking it up into modules. Now, MATLAB provides this through what are called function M files. And so you can take a certain piece of code, you can break it off, put it into a particular form that's called a function. You can then call that function either from the command line or from other M files, script files that you put together. But the main emphasis on this chapter, first of all, is to introduce you to function M files, but also the really important thing is to start using them. Now, there is some overhead involved. You have to set up the function. You have to set up the input-output arguments, and and that takes some effort. But I can absolutely assure you that when you have small, testable modules, functions, which you can then call from driver routines, it will make your life significantly easier. Now, to this student's credit, the They were doing some commenting. I mean, that certainly was good. And in fact, they were actually using some functions, but not to the extent that they probably should have. So let me give you an example here. There's a function at the end of this code, and that's good that a portion of processing was chunked out and turned into a function. But clearly some things could have been done better. You can see that this was created based on some template. You know, title, summary of the function goes here, detailed explanation goes here. Student obviously didn't bother to put that in. And the other thing, of course, you can see is that there's absolutely no comments within the code. So, yes, you definitely want to break off chunks of the code and turn it into functions, but don't stop there. Make sure that your good programming practices continue. The book will talk about what you can do with some of these comment lines right under the function call. You can use that in order to make the function searchable in MATLAB, and also bring up useful comments when you do help in the function name. So you're going to start getting exposed to function M files in this chapter, and I hope that you will use them wisely, not only throughout this course, but throughout all the time that you use MATLAB.